Bore da pawb, good morning.
Morning everyone, we're just going to give it a few more minutes for some more people to join. Okay, right, so I think we'll get started. Hello everyone, can everyone hear me, see me? Yeah, I'm going to share a presentation now, which hopefully you'll be able to see. Lovely, can everyone see that slide? Let me know if not. So, bore da, good morning, welcome everyone. So this is the Centre for Digital Public Services Cost of Living Show and Tell, and we're going to be focusing today on our work specifically on preschool meals content. Just to let you know that the session is being recorded, and the recording will be circulated along with any links and information from the presentation today, and it will also be put on our YouTube channel. So if you want to catch up with it later on or share it with any colleagues, we'll be sending it round. So two key elements of how we work is working in an agile way and also working in the open. So show and tells like this one today is one of the ways in which we do that. They help us to share what we've been doing with our stakeholders and with a wider audience as well, to share what we've learned and to get questions and feedback so that we can continue to improve how we're working and what we're doing. So if you've got any questions or comments, we've got a bit of time at the end, but also please feel free to add them in the chat as we go, and we'll do our very best to answer them as we go along. So just to quickly introduce who we are for those of you who might not have attended one of these before and might not know who we are. So we're the Centre for Digital Public Services, so that's CDPS, and we're an arm's length body of the Welsh Government. And we support public sector organisations in Wales to design and deliver services that meet the needs of the people who use them by taking a user-centred design approach. So there's going to be a few of us speaking to you today about the cost of living project. So there's myself, I'm Jemima, I'm a delivery manager at CDPS. We've got Adrienne, who's our content designer, Liam, our interaction designer, and Tom, our user researcher. So everyone will be talking about their kind of respective parts of the work. So we're going to be talking, as I said, about free school meals in particular. We're going to take you through the project background, so why we've been working on this, talk about our approach and our ways of working, and then we'll go into some more detail about what we've done, and then where we're hoping to take this work next. So that's the structure of the show and tell today. As I said, there'll be some time for questions at the end. We're not going to go into loads and loads of detail about the kind of context and project background, but just enough to give you a bit of an understanding about why we're working on this. Some of you have attended things before, so we don't want to go over things in too much detail, but just enough for those of you who haven't to understand. So the problem that we're facing, as I'm sure everyone is aware, is the cost of living. But despite the fact that people are struggling with the cost of living, there's still a lot of people who aren't claiming the benefits that they're entitled to, and they're not accessing the support that's available to them. So we know that the cost of living is a massive issue for Welsh households. People are going without things that they need. They're concerned about the future. But despite that, there's people aren't claiming the benefits or accessing the support. We think there are a number of reasons for this, ranging from people just don't know what support's out there available to them. They're not willing to claim, perhaps because of a stigma, or they don't know how to, or there's bureaucratic hurdles or literacy issues. So a wide range of reasons why people might not be claiming the things that they're entitled to or accessing this support. So we wanted to try and understand why this was happening. So we did some initial research around the problem, and some of the key things that we found were inconsistent and inaccessible service delivery. As I said, people just aren't aware, or they don't understand the eligibility criteria. We know that services aren't always designed in a user-centred way, so they're not designed necessarily with feedback and input from users or designed around the users, and organisations aren't always sharing data effectively. We held a workshop way back in November with colleagues from local government and Welsh government and charities to try and do a bit of a deep dive into this and identify some of the ways we might be able to solve some of the challenges. The things we identified were consistency, so improved consistency across organisations, across information, breaking down those internal silos, and looking at services and information from a user perspective, looking at a service from end to end from that user perspective, and designing for accessibility in everything that we do. So there's lots of big issues around this and a lot of things that could be tackled. But one of the key things we identified is around content. So inconsistent content across Wales that's causing confusion to end users. And one of the suggestions from that workshop that I mentioned was to find ways that we could co-design content with local authorities and other organisations to reduce duplication and make it easier for people to navigate and access the cost of living support and benefits that are available to them. Ideally, with meeting those aims of creating consistency and breaking down those internal silos and taking a more user-centred design perspective. So some of the issues that we identified related to content were around inaccessible language. So it was too formal, lots of jargon, really difficult for people to understand. And Welsh users couldn't use the service in their preferred language. So they often had to switch to English. Content was unmanageable, so lots and lots and lots of information, too much on one page. It was really overwhelming for people. And services were very unmobile friendly as well. And we know that a lot of people, most people access information like this on their mobile phones. So it just wasn't working for people accessing it that way. And some of it was really intimidating as well. So things like jargon, things like disclaimers, really was off-putting to people, and it was making people feel really confused, frustrated, overwhelmed, intimidated, and that might lead to them just giving up or deciding not to go ahead with something. They might get confused and apply for the wrong thing, or they might ask for help, whether that's from a friend or family or by contacting their local council or another support service. So we wanted to try and tackle some of those issues. So we took the approach of choosing one specific content area and using this as a pilot to try out co-designing bilingual content. So the aim was to collaborate, to bring subject matter experts and content creators together to understand how we could meet user needs better, and also pilot a new way of developing bilingual content. And demonstrate the value of better bilingual content. So making sure that we were embedding bilingualism in the process throughout, so that Welsh isn't an afterthought. So the aim was to develop a piece of content that could be used consistently across multiple channels or websites, and was designed with the user in mind. So for the first project, we tackled a School Essentials grant. So it was previously known as the Pupil Development Grant or various other names, and it enables eligible families to get help with the cost of school essentials such as uniform and equipment. So we worked really closely with local government content experts and subject matter experts and Welsh Gov policy team to collaboratively develop a piece of content, which we then tested with users. And we've put all of the content, tools and templates for the School Essentials grant on the CDPS website. So we'll pop the link to that in the chat and also into the email that we sent after this presentation. And you can also see the previous show and tell we did, which goes into the School Essentials grant in more detail. We know that there's a few local authorities already using this content, and we're hoping that more and more will start to adopt it. So if you know anybody that might be interested in adopting this content within a local authority, please do share this with them. So following on from School Essentials grant, we thought that free school meals would be a good next step. We had some good insights about the user group, and we had a good understanding of the education grant space. And timing wise, it felt like a good, sensible fit as we could develop some content ahead of the new school year. And we were also aware that the free school meal service was undergoing some changes. So we felt that using this approach that we piloted with School Essentials grant would be really beneficial for free school meals. So we're going to talk in more detail about the methodology, including trio writing and user research, and we'll explain what those are and how we did them. But first of all, we're going to talk to you about our ways of working.
Awesome, thanks a lot, Jem. Bore pawb. Yeah, like Jem says, we're going to talk just a little bit about how we work through this project. We work in an agile way. I'm sure most of you know what that is. If you don't, we're just going to quickly run through a few of the different ways that we kind of manage the project and some of the different programs that we use to help us do that. So obviously within everything within CDPS is open and it's collaborative. So everything we do is visible, it's communicated outward externally. And also like within the team, we make sure like everyone knows what everyone's doing in terms of if someone was to go off for a day, somebody else could jump in and kind of like take on that work or certainly push that thing forwards. So we collaborate wherever possible in pair working and obviously trio writing later on. Adrian talk to you about that. It's user-centered. We make sure we use user-centered methodologies throughout the project, and like the decisions that we make are being led by the user research throughout. Like I say, work in an agile way. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but we work in sprints, we work in small chunks, and we adapt the project where needed, like reviews every couple of weeks. In our case, it was every 2 weeks. We have reviews. How's it gone? How do we need to adapt the project moving forwards? And it's a multidisciplinary team. So again, Jem already introduced us anyway, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But essentially, it's a multidisciplinary team, which means a mixture of specialisms, but all contributing all the way through the project, rather than like, one person doing their work and handing it off to somebody else. It's all kind of contributing throughout. So this is the makeup of our team. So we've got a researcher, a translator, comms officer, delivery manager, content designer, interaction designer, which is me. Hello. And, like I said, we don't like do one piece of work and then wait until that's done and then hand that off with a brand new brief to somebody else. We work as a team and we collaborate as much on those things as possible, which means that we all get a good insight into how everyone else works and, just understand the project at a kind of deeper level. So some of the programs that we use to help us manage the project, and some of the agile methods that we use. So we have stand-ups every Monday and Friday. I'm sure you all know what a stand-up is, but if you don't, a stand-up is a chance where the team gets together and you talk about some of the things you've been working on, some of the things that you're looking to do, and then any blockers that you might have that are stopping you from doing that. We do this on a Monday and Friday. You could do this daily if you wanted, but for us, it means that we have a chance to get together on the Monday, talk about what's coming up throughout the week, and again, any issues that we might have in like meeting those goals for that week. And then like our Friday is a chance to debrief on how it went, and anything that we weren't able to do because of any blockers, and sort of plan ready for the next week. And we try and keep those down to they're usually about 20 minutes or something like that. Okay, we also use Miro, which is, if you're not sure what it is, it's like an interactive canvas piece of software. It means that we can run workshops on there. We've run our presentations on there as well, which has meant that they're a nice interactive way for anybody attending those workshops to, have the presentation, but also sort of freely roam around it as well and kind of see what's coming up. And it allows a nice interactive experience. It's also free, which is nice. We use Slack as our daily communication channel. Again, this just means that like we can keep in communication, say what's going on, and again, any issues we might have, any feedback about stuff, just means decisions get made nice and quickly. And we also keep all of our files on the cloud, which means that we can collaborate on those things in real time and sort of speed those things up and simulate that in-person working experience as much as possible. So we mentioned sprints earlier. So we planned our first few sprints. It's just a quick screenshot of that. So we plan out everything that we're intended on doing, give our project objectives, project goals, figure out the tasks that we need to do, give those tasks out to people, and then we figure out where in the timeline they're going to happen. We don't put exact dates on those things because you can't ever really know. Things change, things might need to adapt, some things need to lengthen, some need to shorten. So we tend to put these things in a little roadmap and then adjust them as they go along. And as I say, we reviewed this, then every 2 weeks we'd come together, talk about how the sprint went and any tasks that needed to move forwards or any that we'd already kind of completed nice and early. Okay, and I'll hand over now to talk about what we did.
Thank you, Liam. So I'm going to talk about what we've done after showing the roadmap Liam did just a second ago, but this is what we've done in brief. It was basically the same blueprint, the roadmap that we developed for the first project, for the School Essentials Current project, but we tweaked it a bit, the workshop. So we started with, obviously, project planning. Then we went out to do some desk-based user research on the content out there on the 22 local authorities. Then we put together a workshop to understand user needs. We invited as participants people from Welsh government and also from different local authorities, and we went out to do some trio writing. And then we brought the piece of content that we developed in this session bilingually. We brought it to a content grid or a content review with the same participants from the first workshop. Then we put it into a prototype that then could go out and test with users. And then we are in the process of developing the deliverables, so like the piece of content and toolkit and whatnot. I'll talk a bit more about this. So we started with a workshop to understand user needs. We wanted to be able to define them together with local authorities and Welsh government, at the same time making them be able to get in the shoes of the users. That's something that we did after the initial assessment of the existing content. At the end, after doing the trio writing, we did this content review workshop. As Liam mentioned before, we did this all in using a whiteboarding platform called Miro. So we're sticky notes and that sort of thing. And in between, we did a session of trio writing where we invited the senior primary free school meals implementation manager from Welsh government, so the subject matter expert who wrote with Dinos and I. If you're not familiar with trio writing, it's pair writing, so it's with an extra person. So you would have the expertise of the subject matter expert and the advocacy for user needs of the content designer and the knowledge of how to write for the web. And at the same time, the translator will make sure that we treat both languages equally. So at the end of the process of the session, you would have two pieces of content produced in 2 languages at the same time. So we are treating both languages equally. Liam, do you want to talk a bit about the prototype?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we, like Adrian says, we moved all this content then into a prototype, which is there to kind of simulate a semi sort of realistic environment. So it's not like based on any particular local authority or based on anything like that. It's just kind of to simulate a sort of unbranded, unspecific authority website. So the idea of prototyping obviously is to create something that's quite low fidelity. You're not kind of getting distracted by colors and branding and stuff like that. It's all about making the user feel like they're interacting with a real system, but kind of without getting distracted by anything, so they can focus on the content. We used a piece of software called Figma, which is a piece of software which is like no code environment, and it means that we can drag and drop, move things around. It's a nice, easy piece of software to use. We can also collaborate on that. So Adrian and myself were in there sort of editing things, moving things around together. We created mobile and desktop versions of these, although we found that most of the user research suggested that the majority of people, I think it was, Tom, you could probably correct me on this, but I think it was like high 80s or something, of people were actually accessing this content on mobile devices. But we created both anyway, so the user could sort of choose their preferred space. And as I say, it's sort of generic and unbranded style.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through some of the user research activities we did on this project. Obviously, up to this point, it was great that we had subject matter expert input, so we understood the service itself, some of those intricacies, and the policy behind it. But to make this really user-centered, we obviously needed to get some involvement from actual end users. So I used a user research technique called usability testing, where we took a prototype like Liam's, or you can take a service or a product, and we test it with real end users. And we do that to understand whether the content's meeting their needs, and to identify any unmet needs, and also to find opportunities to improve. So our kind of general plan when it came to the user research was we wanted to recruit 8 participants, 4 Welsh speakers and 4 English speakers. Obviously, we were testing bilingual content, so we wanted that even, fair split. We wanted a range of people from a range of councils, so it wasn't kind of one little localized demographic. Like, we wanted a bit of a broader range than that. In the previous project we did around the School Essential grant, we had challenges with recruitment. So we countered that by starting the recruitment process a bit earlier this time and trying to access some different channels. And we were pretty successful. We managed to link in with the Gwent Parent Governors Network, which is a network of around 800 parents in over the I think 5 local authorities in the Gwent region. So we managed to recruit through that network, which was great because it meant we ended up having 200 responses, which is far more than we normally get. Obviously, we could only use a handful, so we're also developing a user research participant panel. So we got consent via that recruitment to add anyone we didn't use for this round of research to the recruitment panel. So hopefully we can kind of dip into that in the future, which would be really, really useful. That does come with a couple of limitations. Obviously, geographically, that's although it's a few different councils, it's all within the Gwent locale. And the vast majority of those parents weren't parents who were in receipt of free school meals because they were on benefits. It was because they were eligible for the universal free school meals, which is just the universal rollout. So we struggled to get that kind of unique insight from people who were actually had applied and were eligible for free school meals because of their financial situation. We did struggle as well recruiting Welsh language participants. We ended up ultimately testing with 4 English speakers, but only 3 Welsh speakers, because we found it a struggle, and we did go through a few different channels for that. But we managed to test with 2 Welsh speakers from the south and 1 who was originally from north, because we wanted that kind of regional variation in the language as well. And it was really useful. We got some really useful insight to take forward. This is a quote from one of the users, which doesn't seem like a glowing review, but this is actually exactly what we're after when we're developing this kind of content. They said that the information was clear and concise, and that everything they needed was there. So we were really happy with that. That was really good confirmation for us that we were on the right track. In terms of the analysis, what we did was take the more constructive insights that came out of the research, and we did something called affinity mapping, which is an analysis technique where you pull all that insight into something like a Miro board, and you start pulling those into kind of themes. You start to bring them together so that you're having kind of relevant and similar comments brought into themes, which builds the bigger picture and builds the kind of insights and the findings you need to go forward. So generally speaking, like I said, the feedback was positive, but of the constructive feedback we had, we turned these into the following findings. So the vast majority of the people we tested with didn't use their council's website at all to access information on free school meals. What they did do was get informed by their school. So they receive an email or a newsletter from their school, or they may have been signed up to a school app, which notified them of changes to free school meals or just the free school meal scheme in general. People didn't, there was a question about experience of the council's website, and people said they didn't tend to find the council's website very user-friendly or particularly engaging. There were instances of quite a negative experience of using council websites, and people were reluctant to go back to use them, unfortunately. And they also voiced concerns that despite the content for the free school meal page being better, they may still struggle to actually find that on their council website. There was another issue which became a bit of a barrier to how kind of clear we could make our content, which was that participants found the changes to the free school meal schemes quite confusing. So the changes from eligible free school meals to universal free school meals was fairly clear, but then those who had previously applied for free school meals are now expected to continue to apply, even though they don't really need to apply. And that was all quite a confusing load of information for our participants. And as a result, they still struggled somewhat with the clarity of our content because the subject matter itself was a bit unclear to them. There was some examples of parents experiencing concern about the kind of stigma attached to receiving free school meals. And although that concern's now reduced because of the universal rollout, some parents still feel concerned that their child could be treated differently to other children, particularly if, like in secondary schools, they still need to apply and they may still stand out. So in our first round of research testing with Welsh language users, we found that benefit names often aren't very well understood in Welsh. So this came out in this round of testing again. We've now got bilingual benefit names on the Welsh language pages. And this round of testing reinforced that that was the right thing to do, because Welsh language users still struggle to understand the Welsh names for benefits, and they need that English example there because that's what they're used to. Again, it's been mentioned a couple of times, but we've got proof that nearly all participants said they'd access this kind of information on their mobile device. So when it comes to design, we really need to be designing mobile first. And the final bit of insight, or the final finding, which was kind of unrelated to the theme of free school meals, but was I thought it'd be interesting to include here, was that a couple of the parents who were in receipt of benefits, they hadn't checked what other benefits might be available or support might be available to them for their child's school costs. So things like the school essential grant, they weren't familiar with. And it hadn't been until the point of testing and until the point of that benefit or that support coming up that they were really aware or had checked that anything like that existed. So there's still that awareness issue, which might be something that's worth focusing on kind of in some of the further work we do down the line. So that was everything that came out of the usability testing, and I'm going to hand you back to Adrian, who's going to discuss some of the deliverables that came out of the project.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I'm going to give you a brief summary of the different deliverables that we produced with this project. Starting with, we have a better defined way of working than in the previous project, just out of trial and error, basically. I think that is more iterative and more agile. We also delivered this project in a shorter time frame than the previous one. Obviously, we have the piece of user-centered content that we are going to we are in the process of producing the toolkit with this content and the HTML, so to make it as easy as possible for councils to implement it on the website. I think that you'll find a link in the chat of the previous toolkit if you want to take a look at to see what we mean by toolkit. Additionally, we also produced last week a Lunch and Learn on how to do pair writing and trio writing. I think there's also a link in the chat. And because of all the attention that we were receiving on the trio writing, we decided to produce a handbook or a book on trio writing that was launched last week in the ASTED font. You will be able to download it soon from our website for free, the digital version, and I think that you can buy the physical version as well. Well, the cost is just for the print, so it's not for profit. Also, in the book and in the event in the ASTED for last week, we received the support of the Welsh Language Commissioner, the Minister for Education and Welsh Language, and also the head of Project 2025. And some things that they said, Jeremy Miles, for example, said that this new approach will make sure people are at the heart of Welsh language services in the future. And the Welsh Language Commissioner says in the book that she looks forward to seeing these progressive recommendations being implemented, and with clever planning, all users can enjoy the experience of using Welsh language services. So I think that's it. I'm going to hand over to Jemima.
Thanks, Adrian. So we've talked a lot about the resources and the tools that we've used. So as has been mentioned, for School Essentials Grant, we've created a toolkit that's available on the website. We'll be doing the same for free school meals so that people can learn about these tools and techniques and approaches, and they can use it across other areas. And if anyone has any questions, we're always happy for people to contact us if they need any support in implementing that. And we're also looking for the next piece of work. So we're in the process of sort of scoping out exactly what that might look like. We think we'd like to do a bit of a deeper dive into cost of living across one or more local authorities. So work with fewer local authorities to begin with, but look more widely at their cost of living services. So take a bit of a holistic view across all of it. So if anyone is interested in picking that up with us, then please do let us know. It would be kind of a more in-depth discovery, more user research, and just trying to understand the kind of cost of living services and content that local authorities have available as a whole. And just a massive thank you as well to all of the organisations that have worked with us for the free school meals, and also previously the School Essentials Grant, in particular the local authorities who participated in the workshop, obviously all the users that participated in the user research, and also the Welsh Government Policy team, because their input has been invaluable in helping us to understand the policy space and make sure that we're developing content that is accurate as well as user-friendly. So thank you. And now we can open it up for any questions if anyone has any. Feel free to just chip in or raise a hand, or if there's no questions, then that's fine too. Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming. And as I said, we'll be sending around the link to this show and tell as well. There's all the links and things that we've popped in the chat and more information. And my email is there if anyone wants to get in touch. If anyone's got any ideas or feedback that you want to share after today, then just let us know. But thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.